Why do bad things happen to good people? It's a question all of us have asked ourselves when we are hit with calamity. Do I really deserve to have this happen to me? Why did God allow my loved one to die? Why did I have to lose my job when I have my family to take care of? Why would you do this to me? And let me ask you a question. What would you do to find out the answer to that question? We'll be talking about that next, right here on The Right Stuff. So stay tuned.
You are listening to the best, the only place to be on Tuesday night. That's right, you're listening to The Right Stuff, and you're at the right place at the right time. From England to Canada, from Detroit to the Poconos, we are showcasing Christian authors worldwide, giving you tips, tools, techniques, and resources for you, the writer, to hone and perfect your craft. Tune in every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time right here on WPJC 104.5. And your host, Parker J. Cole.
Hi, and welcome to the show. I am so glad you are able to join me. Like I said before the show began, why do bad things happen to good people? It is a question all of us have asked in our life at one point or another. And if you haven't asked that, keep living, as my mother would say, because it will happen. You will have bad things happen to you or some kind of unfortunate event, and you're going to ask the question, I am a good person. Why did this happen to me? It's something we all say. Even those of us who are believers, we ask the question, why do bad things happen to good people? And we're going to be discussing that within the realm of fiction with today's co-host and contributor, Jason Brannon. He is the author of the book, The Tears of Nero, which is book one of the Halo group. So if you want to call in and ask a question, you certainly can by calling in at 646-688-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter, Parker J. Cole, hashtag Right Stuff, with your questions and comments. As always, if you want to get information about me, go to my website, parkerjcole.com. Thank you so much for your support of my Sins of the Flesh series and my writing career to this day. For those of you who have been following me for a very long time, it's been 3 years since the Lord blessed me with doing this show. I'm so thankful for his wonderful kindness and his mercy and his grace towards me, which is definitely undeserved. So I'm so thankful to the Lord for letting me do this 3 years now. I'm looking forward to more. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about The Tears of Nero with our guest co-host and contributor, Jason Brannon.
Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on The Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Have you read the latest issue of Sormag Digital, the award-winning literary magazine for multicultural readers and writers? Sormag Digital is available quarterly and showcases interviews with the best authors in multicultural literature. Sormag Digital features craft and business articles for those interested in writing. If you're looking for a good book, check out our book reviews on what's hot in multicultural literature. For writers looking for new readers to get in front of, Sormag Digital is the perfect place to introduce your book. We offer advertising spaces that fit your promotional budget. Get your free subscription on sormag.com or order a print issue on magcloud.com. If you would like more information about Sormag Digital, check us out on sormag.com or contact us at sormag@yahoo.com. Sormag Digital is the magazine for multicultural readers and writers.
Engaging the culture's imagination through speculative fiction, the Untold Podcast produces audio fiction from a Christian worldview. Find us over at untoldpodcast.com, where we partner with authors to tell science fiction, fantasy, supernatural, and horror stories. Find links at untoldpodcast.com to subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, and a variety of other platforms. Each month we produce high-quality audio fiction that's free to download and free to listen. Our submissions are open, and we're always looking to add another great story to over 24 hours of narrative entertainment. Find all of our audio fiction over at www.untoldpodcast.com.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to the Parker J. Cole Show right here on WPJC 104.5. I'm sorry, I said the Parker J. Cole Show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, I'm so glad you're able to join me. We are talking about the Tears of Nero. And what I really enjoyed about this book with Jason Brannon is that he took one of the toughest questions out there about why do bad things happen to good people, and then he twisted it, turned it, coiled it upside down, made it into a dark tale. And you know what? I think he did a wonderful job at least addressing that question. I don't think anyone has the correct answer to this question, but definitely when we have Christ in our lives, we have a different viewpoint of why do bad things happen to good people. And so with me to talk about this is my wonderful guest, co-host and contributor today, Jason Brannon. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Parker. Thanks for having me on.
And let me tell you, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I never take it lightly when our guest co-hosts and contributors are here. And since I am a fan of your work, I was just really blessed that you took time out to be with us because I really enjoyed the Tears of Nero. I remember blowing up your Facebook chat about it, just going, oh, my gosh, this happened. Oh, my gosh. You know, more and more twisted turns and lots of surprises in there. And so I'm really glad you took time out of your schedule to be with us on the show and share with us about the Tears of Nero.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. The chat was almost like a live feed as you were reading. I kept getting message after message saying, you know, how could you do this? What happens next? I can't believe it. So, yeah, I'm just glad you enjoyed it, and I'm glad it struck a chord for you.
It really did, because you're taking on a topic a lot of people write nonfiction about. A lot of people write, you know, a plethora of books about why do bad things happen to good people. It's always in the realm of nonfiction. So this was the first time I've actually seen it, as far as in my sphere of knowledge, that I've seen it worked in nonfiction. I love the way you did it because it is a dark tale. And so go ahead in your own words, before we get into the Tears of Nero, go ahead and in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 39. I'm a dad of 3 kids. I'm married. Originally, I'm from Amory, Mississippi, which is a really small town in rural, Mississippi. I've moved to Memphis, where I'm making my home now. I've been writing for about 20 years or so, actively publishing for about the last 15 to 16. So that's pretty much it. I'm a pretty ordinary guy, I think, by most standards, although you may not agree with that after reading some of the stuff that I've written.
Yeah, I love those Facebook memes that say, I'm not a serial killer, just a writer.
Exactly. Yeah, that always strikes home with me.
Because you're just doing research. You know, back in the day, we couldn't have a Facebook meme. We had to go to the library and do it, and then get all these books about poisons and death and guns and what's the best way to shoot somebody if you're coming from a roof on top of the mountain here. I was thinking about that book Shooter that became a movie, and how the guy was trying to figure out what's the best way to shoot the I can't think of who it was, but he had to shoot somebody and all this stuff. And yeah, all we got to do now is go to the internet and get it.
Yeah,
so
you know, just don't look at the Google searches, right?
Right. You'll see poison, guns, you know, how best to torture someone. Right. It's interesting. We writers have fun with those type of things. So you told us a bit about yourself, and then you said you were married, but I'm not going to let you stop there. You go ahead and tell us about your new wife, young man. You go ahead and tell us about her.
Well, my wife, you know, she's only been my wife for a little over a month, but her name's Vanessa, and you know, we've known each other for a little over a year, and you know, I guess when you find the right person, you just know it, and you know, she's definitely the right person for me. She's my better half, which I will definitely say to anybody, and you know, she is my biggest cheerleader, my biggest fan, and my biggest encourager. So I'm definitely grateful for her, and I thank God for her every day.
And I wasn't going to let you not just say that, because I was so excited to see your wedding pictures. I was just so happy. You had some gorgeous wedding pictures with the petals and the flowers and the people all happy. I love weddings, and so I wanted to make sure we acknowledge that. And so, you know, we're writing the Tears of Nero here. We're talking about the Tears of Nero. So what led you to writing the Tears of Nero? Go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I started out writing, 20 years or so ago, I was convinced that I was going to be the next big horror writer. I read Stephen King, Dean Koontz, those sorts of books, and I was just convinced that was the way that I was going to go. I was raised in a Christian home. I'm Southern Baptist, always have been. So, beliefs have always been a big part of my upbringing. And, although I felt like I had a talent and did pretty well with the writing and the publishing that I did, it was kind of like there was something missing in the fiction that I wrote. And eventually it kind of got to the point where, you go through different things in life, you mature, and I just got to that point where I thought there had to be a point where the fiction that I liked that had, teeth and claws and, just kind of had a bite to it, and the beliefs that I had could maybe intersect somehow. And it actually started a few years back with a book that I wrote called The Maze, which is, the first technically speculative Christian novel that I wrote and published. But, I kind of took it a step further with The Tears of Nero. And as far as, the subject matter goes, it's something that appeals to, or everybody can relate to. It may not appeal to everybody, but everybody can relate to the fact that bad things have happened to them. And then, if you have faith and you have beliefs, there are times when your beliefs, I guess you may question them, you may have doubts because, you're on the mountaintop, you're going well, God's blessing you, and then something really bad happens in your life, and you're just like, why did that happen? Where did that come from? And it just kind of makes you question a lot of things. So, I chose the theme because I thought it was something that a lot of people could relate to and a lot of people had experienced in their own lives. And not only that, it also calls into the question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? It kind of calls into question, what are good people? What makes a good person? Because everybody's version of that is different. You may look in the mirror every morning and say, you know what, I'm a good person. But when you start to peel back the layers and see things maybe that are not what they should be, you start to say, well, am I a good person? And what makes a good person? And what defines that? So those things kind of figured in pretty heavily when I was writing the novel, just because those were themes, I guess, that were on my mind at the time. So
I think that's a good point that you bring up, especially what makes a good person, because I'd like to know, because I honestly don't know what makes up a good person. I think people, when they say, well, I do this and I blood, I volunteer at this, and it's like that's something that you do, but what makes you a good person? Is it what you really do that makes you a good person, or is it something more? And then you start to realize, well, if it's not something that I do, because then it's just a popularity contest, who can do the best works, who can do the best charity events, who can do the best whatever. And then you start to realize that there is no such thing as a good person. And a lot of people, they go, well, if I'm a good person, enough. And then, well, how good is good enough? And so all these philosophical questions begin to come up. And I like how you explore this through the book, The Tears of Nero. And so you kind of answered my question already about why you decided to tackle this topic. And you said a lot of people have experienced this. I was remembering a quote that Ravi Zacharias made. And I think he was quoting either G.K. Chesterton or he was quoting C.S. Lewis. And he said, when we're in pain, that's when God really has our attention. If he gives us all good things, he don't really have our attention. When bad things happen, that's when we can hear him now. Suddenly we're in a spirit to be listening to what he has to say. And so this whole question about why do bad things happen to good people, do you think it's one of the hardest questions to answer? And there are many hard, tough questions out there, but do you think this is one of the toughest to answer?
It definitely is one of the hardest to answer, and I don't know that I even successfully answered it because I don't have the answer.
Right.
We don't know, God's ways about why things happen the way that they do. We always just, take on faith that, that he has everything under control and that everything is sort of in his hands. And, a lot of this comes, brings faith into the equation because, how much faith do you have? No matter how bad things get, do you still keep trusting in God, or do you sort of turn away when things get bad? Or is it the opposite? When things get really bad, do you turn to him because that's the only place you have left? And, that's sort of the theme. There's sort of a dichotomy that exists, pretty much in most people where they know what to do. They know the right things that they're supposed to do, but sometimes they don't always do them, and that sort of figures into the book because that's one of the main themes with the antagonist, Nero. He sort of got two different sets of beliefs and things like that going on. So I guess, when you look in the mirror, you think, okay, which person am I seeing right now? Am I seeing the person that does the right things, or am I seeing that person that just messed up a little while ago? and maybe did something that I shouldn't have done. I said something I shouldn't have done, said something out of anger. Am I a bad person at that point because I did that?
And I think you hit it on the nail, too. That's why I think I agree with you that even when you read the book and you kind of come to these conclusions, it's not that you answer the question, it's that you delve into it. Because in this body right now, this body and sin-sick world, we don't have the answer to that question. And then we don't even have the answer to what makes a good person. And then we find out we really don't have a lot of answers to our questions and all these tough philosophical questions of life that are out there. But I truly think you did a really good job. So I'm going to let our listeners know that you definitely want to get a copy of The Tears of Nero today. It is available through the Crossover Alliance as well as on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. As you know, Right Stuff works very closely with the Crossover Alliance because we really believe in their mission about spreading the word with edgy Christian speculative fiction. So go ahead, visit the Crossover Alliance, and you can get a copy of Jason Brandon's book, The Tears of Nero, which is available on Amazon.com. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about The Tears of Nero with my guest co-host and contributor. So if you want to weigh in on our topic, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter, Parker J. Cole, hashtag Right Stuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Authors, are you looking for a new way to get your book in the hands of new audience of targeted buyers? Then a virtual book tour is for you. Right now, virtual book tours is an excellent opportunity for you to introduce your book and who you are as an author. Launching your book is very important. A virtual book tour will connect you with readers. We at WNL, we specialize in book tours, book blasts, radio tours, cover reveals, and Facebook chat. Promoting and marketing your book is what we do. Online publicity, the exposure and the publicity is what you need. Let us help you reach new readers and a new audience. We take care of everything so you don't have to. We set up the tour for you. We connect you with bloggers to advertise your book by way of interviews, guest posts, and reviews. If you are an author of a newly published book, have an upcoming release, or just want to give a previously published book new life, a virtual book tour is your answer. Check our tours out at www.wnlbooktours.com. Visit me on Facebook. I am the owner, Paulette Harper.
Question: if you write a book, everybody will rush out to buy it. Obvious answer, no. If you were a celebrity or if you had a huge marketing budget, then maybe you can get a lot of exposure for your book. Another solution would be to check out joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com is a promotion and marketing service with access to over 1/3 of a million followers on Twitter. joeytweets.com has 3 packages available to fit any budget. That's joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com. Get some serious exposure for your books.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5, part of the PJC Media Online Broadcasting Company. I'm so glad you're here with me today as we talk about The Tears of Nero with my guest co-host and contributor today, Jason Brandon. Again, Jason, thank you so much for being with us on the show as we talk about your book, because I really want to delve into this book. I mean, this book is meaty. It is not for the faint of heart. If you do not like dark tales like me, don't read it. But I still want you to, you know what, I don't care if you don't like dark tales. You read this book, because he's not just giving you a dark tale. He's actually taking a very important question that so many of us have. We may be going through something right now. One of our listeners in the audience today may be going through something right now, and they're wondering, why do bad things happen to good people? Get this book. It's going to be an entertaining, edge-of-your-seat roller coaster ride, but guess what? By the time you're done with this book, you may have just a little more clarity about why do bad things happen to good people. And so the interesting thing about your book, Jason, is the title, The Tears of Nero. And I remember when I saw it, I said, wasn't Nero that nut job? That's the first thing that came to mind when I saw the Tears of Nero. Like, why would I care if Nero was crying? So go ahead, tell us a little bit about why you decided to name the book The Tears of Nero.
Well, as far as Nero is concerned, if you read anything about him, in a historical perspective, he's about as bad as they come.
Yeah.
I read several things about him online, and it just, just when you think you've read the worst thing that he's done, you find something else, and you just kind of, it's difficult to believe that somebody was as demented and as unhinged as he was. So, the theme of the book, is about why bad things happen to good people. And, there has to be a means of those bad things happening in the narrative. And, obviously, if you go to the worst thing or the worst person that you can find to base a character off of, then, that sort of kickstarts things, especially in this case, because, what we have is a person who has modeled himself after Nero. So this is not the Nero from the historical perspective. This is somebody who has modeled himself after Nero and taken on the persona. So, for instance, when you read up on Nero, he did things like, he murdered people as a child. He burned 10 of 14 Roman districts and blamed it on Christians, basically so he could have the ability to rebuild Rome to his liking. He burned people alive in his gardens at night for illumination. So not a nice guy by any stretch of the imagination. So the sort of crux of the novel comes from him taking 5 people and putting them on this island, and his I guess method is to sort of test and try these 5 people as a means of finding out the answer to the question. So he is using these people and the things that they've been through in their life, or the things that he plans to put them through, as a way of finding out the question, why do bad things happen to good people? And as you go through the novel and you find out, maybe not all of them are good people, maybe some of them are, and you have to find out how they react to the things that are done to them. And that's kind of the litmus test, I guess, that he uses. He does these terrible things to his victims on this island, and he looks to see how they respond. He looks to see what their reaction is, which brings in, to question, why do bad things happen to good people? As far as the title of the book goes, still talking about, good people, bad people, sort of the dichotomy that each of us have. We have the ability to do good, and we also have the ability to do evil. And without giving too much away about the book, you already know kind of where that would be with Nero himself and how those two things sort of figure in. But, when you think about tears, you think of somebody that's meek, maybe somebody that's broken, somebody that's maybe sad. Then you also have the other end of that spectrum where you have Nero, who is furious. He's an angry person. He's a not very nice guy in pretty much every respect. So, the Tears of Nero in the title, it just basically shows both ends of the spectrum, and that's kind of the way that Nero, the character, is written. He goes from one end of the spectrum to the other. He goes from the sad, broken person that he is in part of the novel, and he progresses to the angry, outraged madman that he ends up at the finale. So that's really where the title comes from.
I was thinking about what you said, and it's something I've thought about a lot throughout my life, is that each of us has this capacity to be Nero. Every single one of us on the planet has this capacity to be just as depraved, just as sick, just as nut jobby, which is not a word, but it's mine, nut jobby as Nero. We totally have that capacity. And I think it's because, the Bible says that our hearts are desperately wicked. And it kind of puts you into perspective about people, which brings about this whole topic about good people. If the heart is desperately wicked, what does that mean about us, even some of us who say we're good people? And what I enjoyed about Nero was that he was asking tough questions. Even in the midst of his insanity, he was asking tough questions. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking those tough questions. I mean, in your opinion, Jason, do you think some people try to say, well, God understands, or you just need to trust God? Sometimes people do not like those pat answers. They don't want to hear, well, God knows my heart. God knows that he'll never put more on you than you can bear. And you're thinking to yourself, well, this poor woman just lost her child. someone came and stole her child from her, or this poor guy lost his job and his daughter has cancer. Now he can't pay for the treatments for that child, or this kid was bullied by all these people and he lost an eye because he got beat up on. And you're saying, well, God won't put more on you than you can bear. Some people, they can't handle that type of answer. So, wouldn't you say that even though Nero was in the book was crazy, he really went ahead and tried to figure out the answer to this question? Can you commend him for that? Just as you look back on your own work and how Nero is, could you commend him for trying to find out the answer to this deep question? Not in the way that he did it, but what do you think?
Well, I think the way he went about getting the answer to the question obviously is not the way to go, but I think he did what probably most of us do. He's asking the questions because, whether we voice them or not, we think some of the things that maybe he thought in the book. And the way I would describe him best, I guess, in the novel is he's sort of a wounded animal. Nero is born in this book out of tragedy. He doesn't start out as a demented, sick, twisted madman. I mean, he's born from a tragedy that affects him personally in his life, and he's one of those guys that, he had always been told, trust God, have faith in God. That was sort of his life up to a certain point, and then he ran into some tragedy, just like the rest of us do in life, and he just doesn't react the same way that most people do. Now, the questions that he asks are his attempt to basically come to grips with why things are happening to him in the way that they have. So I don't think that it's necessarily asking the questions. It may be, the way he goes about it obviously is not the way. But I think we should all probably ask the questions because, if nothing else, it gets you to thinking about maybe what the answers could be, but it gets you maybe delving it a little deeper into maybe the reasons why these things happen, or, maybe we can learn a little bit more about, why God allows some of these things because we're searching for them. Until you start looking for answers, you probably are not going to find them. So when things like this happen, if we ask a certain question and we go in search of it, maybe we don't find the answer that we're looking for, but maybe we find something to give us a little bit more insight.
We did get a question from Twitter. We got a question from Lynette. Lynette, thank you so much for your question. Lynette says, Nero was a psycho, but many Christians died under him. Does God call all of us to be a form of Job? Lynette, thank you so much for your question. Jason?
Does God call all of us to be a form of Job?
Yeah.
Is that the...
Well,
question. I mean, I think Job, Job obviously is an example that's put before us to see, just how bad things can really get. And Job is a inspiration for part of the narrative and part of the character here, because Job goes through a lot in his life. And, I guess the question is how we respond to the things that happen to us. And that's really kind of the way that this works in the book, too, is how does Nero respond to the bad things that happen to him. And, there are other characters in this book, too, that are really, I guess, more like Job than Nero, especially Edward, who is probably the protagonist of the book. If you'll remember, Edward has a lot of things that he's gone through that we find out more and more about as we go through the book. And, Edward is sort of he's an experiment, I guess, of sorts. All of these things have happened to him as a way of Nero sort of judging what reaction should or should not be. So, we all, I guess, can draw from the story of Job. And, if things happen, bad or otherwise, we still should praise God for them because, those are put there for a purpose. Those things happen to us for a purpose. And even though we may not understand what they are, that's what we're called to do because God has everything in control. And we should, we have to recognize that sometimes those things are beyond our understanding.
I think you made a good point, and what Nero was doing in the book as he's attempting to ask his question through these type of basically torturing these people through that, he's actually doing something I think a lot of us would do. And we're not torture people, but we're just trying to dig deeper and try to find a satisfactory answer to the question. And when I say that, we want our answer to the question. We don't want God's answer to the question. And so I think with Nero, he really personified, I am not satisfied with that answer. And I want a good answer that makes sense to me. And like you said, sometimes it doesn't make good sense at all. It doesn't make good sense. One thing, now I'm going to tell you something about Nero to our listeners out there. Nero made me so mad because he reminded me of the guy from Saw. And I did not watch Saw because I refuse to watch. I don't like to get people cut up. I just don't like people cut up. But when I read the premise of Saw, he's doing this to kind of, in his own way, show people they should value their lives. And so, how much do you value your life? If you're caught with a bear, I think it was a bear claw in her mouth. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a bear claw in her mouth. She had to get the key, or it's gonna, pull a face open or something like that. She had to kill a guy to get the key to whatever, something like that. And I kept getting angry when I thought, who are you to do this? Who are you to tell other people, well, you should value your life? So I could put you in a position where you had to choose between life and death, But when you look at the Tears of Nero, it's kind of like the same. It's kind of like the same thing. Like Nero's gonna figure out this question by torturing people, and I think it's because the question itself is so torturous because we know that we're not going to get a satisfactory answer to it. And so you mentioned about the various characters. I think those characters help to bring more of the book cohesiveness together. So who were some of your favorite characters in Tears of Nero?
Well, first of all, let me just address the Saw comparison because it's interesting that you say that because one reviewer said that the book reminded him of a combination of Saw and Gilligan's Island, that would be the book that you would get if you put those two things together. So it was never set out with that intent, but, I can kind of see where he got that from. So you're not the first person to maybe point out a little bit of similarity between the two.
Right.
But, if I had to go and pick out some favorite characters, I would say Franklin is probably one of my favorite characters in the book because he's very sarcastic, which I can be a lot of times, whether, on purpose or not. But, he's not the most likable guy. And
at all.
you didn't like him, I know. Yeah, I remember
I did not like
him. Yeah, but, to me he was one of the more interesting characters because even though he's not very likable, there were still elements of him that you didn't really know. You didn't know why you didn't like him. Well, obviously he was sort of a jerk at some point, but you knew there was probably other reasons why you shouldn't like him, and those had to be revealed over time. So I felt like even though he was drawn as sort of a unlikable guy, it takes a while to really find out why you should dislike him as much as you really do. Also I think Edward probably is my favorite character, which he's obviously the protagonist of the book. He's the leader of the group that's on the island. Because I guess he most closely represents the way I would like to react in situations. Yeah. So he's the ideal for me because he loses a lot of things in the book. Actually, even before the book starts, historically he has lost a lot of things in his life, but his responses to those losses have been what I would hope I would be able to do. Not saying that I would be able to react in the way that he does, but, he's lost his family. And even though maybe he's sort of drifted away from the church and his faith, he still believes and he still managed to sort of hang on to the person that he was. He hasn't lost himself in all the tragedies. So, I guess for that reason, he's sort of a leader. He's kind of the most level-headed of the bunch. And he just has managed to not lose himself in all the bad things that have happened.
We are having just a fantastic discussion with my guest co-host and contributor today, Jason Brannon. He talks about his book, The Tears of Nero. If you want to weigh in on our topic, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #RightStuff with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guest on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Hi. Is your book club in need of some fresh and exciting questions to ask club members and authors at your next book club meeting? Literations, the book conversation game, is 70 thought-provoking questions to really get into an in-depth discussion about the books you and your club members are reading. These questions really get into the characters, the storyline, and into the author's head. These questions may just give you and your book club members a whole new way to get into a new conversation, a literation. Literations is also a great set of tools for bloggers, interviewers, and authors to use a discussion question. Are you ready to get lit? please visit our website at litversations.com, LITVERSATION.com. And please like our Facebook page at Simply Said Reading Accessories. Thank you.
Are you a reader looking for more compelling Christian fiction? Maybe something a little more edgy or a bit more real? Are you tired of most Christian fiction shying away from the truth and settling for a rose-tinted view of the world and its issues? Or are you an author who has a compelling story to tell, but you're afraid it doesn't jive with today's brand of Christian or secular fiction? Are you tired of Christian publishers telling you that your content is too edgy? Or maybe you've tried submitting your content under the radar to secular publishers only to be told your themes are a bit too religious. We invite you to take a look at the Crossover Alliance. We are an online publishing company that specializes in edgy Christian speculative fiction with Christian themes and real-world content. Our company is formed from authors and readers just like you who are breaking into the mainstream and Christian markets with this compelling genre. Head over to the www.thecrossoveralliance.com for all the details on who we are, what we do, and what we accept. Right now, if you sign up for our email newsletter, you'll receive a free digital copy of our first short story anthology. Check us out today and help us spread the word about the Crossover Alliance, where light shines brighter in the darkness.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. You know, as I was playing the ad for the Crossover Alliance, I'm just really glad to be part of their outreach needs, that they need to get the word out about Christian speculative fiction and have great authors such as Jason Brand and Mark Carver and so many others that they work with via the Crossover Alliance, because I really am on board with their mission. And so go ahead and visit the Crossover Alliance today. Just simply Google it and you'll find it. They have great books out there with edgy Christian speculative fiction. They are not afraid to delve into the taboo topics the mainstream Christian publishing industry doesn't want to get into. As you know on this show, it's not that I'm for being vulgar, but I think it's okay rather to talk about these tough topics. And Jason's book really does delve into a tough topic. Some of us have been believers, and we're wondering, why did this bad thing happen to me? I serve the Lord. I go to church every day. I believe that He is the Son of God. I know that He is the one true God. And why is this happening to me? And some of us may say, I don't want to be Job. I just want to be a follower of Christ. I don't want my life to be too hard or too difficult. And yet sometimes we're faced with calamity, and we wonder, why did this happen to me if I'm a believer? And so the Crossover Alliance seeks to use books like Jason's book to answer these tough questions, maybe even other questions you may have. And so go ahead and visit the Crossover Alliance today and go ahead and see what kind of great books you can get. And if you sign up for the newsletter, like they said in the ad, you get a free copy of their anthology that they put out last year. And they just celebrated their first year, so I'm really excited for the Crossover Alliance. And as we get back into our conversation with Jason, you know, Jason, what I liked about your book, and I think I thought it would happen, but you didn't have a romantic element in this book, and I'm a romance novelist, okay? So you didn't have a romantic element in this book. I kept thinking you were going to put that in there, but then I'm glad you didn't, because so many times some of the secular horror books, they have some random romantic element that makes no sense, that slows down the pacing of the movie. You just want to see people get killed, and they didn't have like a romantic element. So what kind of, this is my personal question to you, what kind of made you stray away from that romantic element? Was it just more about the story itself, or did you ever think about having a romantic element? What do you think?
Well, even though there's not a straightforward romantic element in the book, there are hints of romance in the memories of Henry specifically about his wife. And you know, that to me that's one of the best. To me, that's one of the best aspects of Henry is, you know, he's an old guy that's been around a while, and he lost his wife to cancer. And you know, throughout the book, you hear these things about, you know, Henry missing, you know, his wife, and you know how he wishes he could just, you know, see her one more time, or hear her voice, or hear her play the piano for him. So, you know, although there's not strictly a romantic arc to the book, you know, there are little bits and pieces of that. You know, there's also Edward, you know, and his kind of recollections about his wife before she passed away. So, you know, in this book specifically, there just wasn't I didn't feel like there was a need for it. Now, I have explored, you know, romantic aspects in other books like The Maze, where it's basically a guy that's trying to save his family, and his affections for his wife come into play, and that sort of thing. But in this book specifically, this is more about anger. This is more about somebody that's gone through life and been dealt a raw deal, in their opinion, and they want to, I guess, get back at God, so to speak, or they want to punish people that believe in God. And there's not just a real good way, or I didn't find a good way to sort of put a romantic element into that, although I wouldn't stray away from it in the future, because there are other books in this series that are coming down the pipe. So who knows, maybe the next one will have a little bit of romance for you.
I look forward to that, because I definitely I love your writing style. I told you I love your gift with words, and I hope I get just as gifted as you when I get older, because I love your gift with words and just immersing the reader into this horrific tale, not horrific tale, but this horror tale, and just taking us along for the ride. And so there's another question I have for you is, how have other readers responded? I know how I responded, because you had a live feed, kind of like I was doing a live feed as I was reading the book.
Exactly.
But how have other readers responded to The Tears of Nero?
Well, when I wrote this book, I wrote the kind of book that I wanted to read, but was having difficulty finding. Like I mentioned before, I had a pretty heavy horror background, dark fantasy, any kind of spec fic, that was out there. That was my thing. And I couldn't really find anything that had that was edgy. Obviously there's an underground scene, but there wasn't anything that was really edgy that I wanted to read. So I wrote the kind of book that I would like to read as a reader. And the response that I've got from people is, this is the kind of book that I've been looking for. This is, where's this book been? Because this is exactly what I wanted to read, because it has the bite and it has the edge of the horror, dark fantasy, that genre, but it also has this moral undercurrent that, as a believer, that I need in the things that I read and consume. So, overall, that's just been the best part, is because people seem to understand it. They get it. And, obviously the message, I think, that is in the book, or the moral or the theme, it's sort of hitting home for a lot of people, too. So I guess, if anything else, it just kind of encourages me to keep going in the direction that I am, because I found that this is something that people are responding to in the way that I had anticipated and hoped for.
I wanted to read one of your reviews that you got for Tears of Nero. It says, I love this story. The conversations between the characters about free will, sin, and bad things happening to good people help make this an interesting read, because we all have thought about these things, but are we brave enough to lay it all out in the open? Nero does, because he appears to be on a quest to prove that God is wrong. He even causes some of the other characters to question why some things happen the way they do. This story is so amazing because the author shows us how awesome God is because of our free will, but he is not a God who expects us to be robots. We have the freedom of choosing everlasting life or not. Since we have the freedom to choose, sometimes we choose to walk the path of anger, hatred, pain, sorrow, despair, lust, sexual immorality, and others that lead us away from God. These things can cause a chain reaction that lead to bad things happening to good people. What a unique story. And I want to thank the reviewer for that. And it kind of just really brings it all together about The Tears of Nero because of this element of free will. And I know some of our brothers and sisters out there don't believe in free will, but that's another subject for another time and another place and another hour and all that good stuff. And so you talked about The Tears of Nero, so I want to kind of go into some of your other works that you have. What currently are you working on right now, or what are some of the works that want to get more into your writing? Tell us about your other books that you have out there.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the book that preceded this was The Maze, which was released by Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas, and it is a dark fantasy. It's sort of a trippy fantasy take on I guess the consequences of bad decisions. So it's if you enjoy The Tears of Nero, The Maze would probably be right there in your wheelhouse. As far as new projects, I'm working on the follow-up to The Tears of Nero, which is tentatively titled The Fury of Nero. And I've also been working on a coming-of-age type of like Stand By Me-ish novel about a bunch of kids. It's tentatively titled Miracle Man. I'm about 70%, 80% of the way through that. And this is a little bit different twist on a project, I guess. But my brother and I have recently started a business, and we have an escape room business, and we have a Nero room that is based off of the book. So this is sort of a live-action take on the Tears of Nero, where participants are locked in a room for an hour, and they have to figure out the puzzles and the riddles in order to escape Nero's clutches. So that has been the most recent thing.
I love it. That is brilliant. I wouldn't go, though. But it's absolutely brilliant, Jason. It's a good way to segue the book, too. You say, well, if you want to read more about it, here's the book here.
Well,
oh, my gosh.
The participants, they're getting a copy of the book. If you come and you go through it and you escape, we give you a copy of the book. So, you know, the Fury of Nero, the room itself, is basically Nero focused on releasing the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. As you've noticed through the book, he has a sort of affinity or a fascination about the end of the world. So we just took that one step further, and, you know, it doesn't have to make sense what he's trying to do. It's just that's his thing. And, you know, he's locked you in this room, and he's tasked you with, you know, loosing the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And, you know, if you do that, then he will let you out of the room within the hour. If you fail him, well, you know, the outcome's probably not going to be so good. So that's the setup right now, and we've had, you know, a lot of victims. You know, Nero's had a lot of victims since we opened that room up in the last weekend or so.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, how brilliant is that? That's absolutely brilliant. I hope you much success in that, even though it kind of seems kind of weird to say that. Have all these people locked in the room.
It's all fun. You're not really locked in, but it's just, you know, just for, I guess, just for the sake of argument, that's what you're technically, quote unquote, locked in, but you can leave at any time. So it's just for fun.
Well, you know, Jason, we're getting close to the end of our show here, so I want to let people know that, you know, being a writer does take time. There are some writers out there who are aspiring to write, but they think they've been at it too long. So I always have to ask this question so other people out there can know that, hey, it doesn't matter how long it takes as long as you get it done. So go ahead and tell us, how long have you been writing again? I know you mentioned at the beginning of the show, but how long have you been writing, and how long did it take to write Nero?
I've been writing since I was 16, so, you know, I'm 39 now, so it's been a little while. I actively started submitting to magazines and anthologies and things like that when I was about 21. So I've been selling fiction since, you know, about, you know, 18, 19 years at this point. So it's one of those things that if you're serious about it, you do to please yourself first, and you don't write the flavor of the month just to get in a certain magazine or a certain anthology. You have to write the things that you're passionate about, the things that, you know, matter to you. And as far as, you know, Nero, it took off and on probably the better part of a year. I'm very, I procrastinate a lot, I guess, sometimes when it comes to writing, and I will leave a project sitting for a little while if I've gotten bored with it, and I have to come back later because my attention span sometimes is very short when it comes to staying on task and staying on point with the story. So, you know, that one, had I gone straight through, I could have probably finished it in about 6 months. But, you know, the way I work is very probably unorthodox, you know, when it comes to the way a lot of other writers do. So, you know, I would say, you know, to anybody that's trying to, like, start this right now, do what makes you happy. Write the things that you really feel, and, you know, if you take a break from it because you get frustrated, just come back. You know, just come back to it at some point and try to remember the reasons that you started writing in the first place.
Go ahead and tell us if we want to get in contact with you, where can we find you online?
I have a website at www.jasonbrannon.us. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/laptopsamurai. Also on Twitter, same handle. So any of those 3 places are good places to find me. Come see me, and I'll definitely respond back.
And my last question isn't necessarily a question as much as my encouragement for you to encourage others, because this show is all about having authors pick up the pen and write. And one thing I always encourage is speculative fiction, because it's growing now, but it has been the redheaded stepchild of Christian publishing. So here you are, an author who wrote a dark tale, and there's still a message of of the gospel in there. There's still a message of Christ in there. It's answering tough questions. And so I want you to give an encouraging word to those authors out there that say, hey, I like dark things. I can't write dark things. Go ahead and encourage those authors out there to go ahead and pick up the pen and write that dark tale.
I would definitely encourage that, because I've been in plenty of situations where the publisher wanted to encourage me to write things that I wasn't comfortable with, that didn't go along with the way I believed. And you can chase that all day long, and at the end of it, you've sort of lost yourself doing what somebody else wants you to do. At the end of the day, I would say if you have a knack or an interest in any kind of like speculative fiction, horror, dark fantasy, science fiction, any of those things, make it your own, but stay true to what you believe in it. Don't lose yourself in the narrative trying to write something that you think a publisher will respond to. This is a representation of who you are and what you believe. So as it's out there in the world, you can't take it back. So anything that you publish, anything that you write, that's a representation of what you think and believe, and make it be true to who you are.
Jason, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. I really appreciate you taking time, and thank you for writing a wonderful book, The Tears of Nero. So thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.
And we were talking today to Jason Brannon. He is the author of the book, The Tears of Nero. Go ahead and love on my brother today and get a copy of The Tears of Nero today. You will not be disappointed. It's available at the Crossover Alliance as well as on Amazon.com. And when you get a book, go ahead and leave a review. I always tell you that we authors need reviews. Reviews make us happy. It fills our bellies, and it just makes us more able to get more readers, because readers are titillated by the reviews that you leave. So go ahead and leave an honest review of my brother's book today. And if you want to find him online, you certainly can. Simply go to his website, jasonbrannon.us, or you can find him on Facebook at Laptop Samurai and also on Twitter at Laptop Samurai. You definitely will enjoy The Tears of Nero and all his other works available. He's been writing for a long time, and let me tell you, he is a wonderful, wonderful wordsmith. So go ahead and get a copy of my brother's book, The Tears of Nero, today, available from the Crossover Alliance. Don't forget to join me Saturdays for the Parker J. Cole Show at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time right here on WPJC, and then listen to your dovetails and sharing other dovetails with Deborah on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. right here on WPJC, part of the PJC Media brand. Thank you again for joining me for this edition of The Right Stuff. I am the queen of Tuesday Night, Parker J., and you have a wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Right Stuff. Follow Parker online at parkerjcole.com. To hear this show and other shows, visit the show archive at therightstuffradio.wordpress.com. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.